Now, this week's art talk is on Antoni Gaudí. Some of you know that I'm a student of typography, and typography is really the art and technique of arranging type letters to make the written language more readable and appealing. Now, this includes selecting typefaces, and this week's artist, Gaudí, designed his own typeface. I'm going to show this to you on the screen. It's very curvy and drippy, and you will see that when Sarah takes us through some of his artwork.
Yeah, you know, AJ, in 1972, Steve Jobs dropped out after one semester at Reed College, then hung around at Reed College studying calligraphy and artists like Gaudí. Jobs said that throughout the campus, every poster was beautifully hand-drawn. It was aesthetic, historical, and artistically subtle in ways that science can't capture. Calligraphy gave Jobs the aesthetic sense most techies lacked. A beautiful artistic feel that is captured in every Apple product. And you can see that if we've all probably in some way or another have interacted with an Apple product, that they are definitely aesthetic and easy to use. But you know, he was the driving force behind Apple's city name typefaces like New York, Chicago, and Geneva.
Indeed. So now there's so much more to Gaudí beyond calligraphy. So why don't we let Sarah take over? Welcome, Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. All this talk about apples has me hungry. Apple products, apple pie. Right, here we go. Okay, so Antoni Gaudí was born in the Catalonia region of Spain, just south of Barcelona on the Mediterranean coast in June of 1852. And his birthplace is the question of a controversy because precise documentation is non-existent. So there's this debate whether he was born in Reus or Riudoms, which are two neighboring municipalities. He was the youngest of 5 children, and his family had roots in the Auvergne region of southern France as well. From the beginning, Gaudí exhibited a great appreciation for nature and especially the environment of his native region of Catalonia. He eventually became a very enthusiastic outdoorsman, joining outdoors clubs in the areas. But despite his zeal for the outdoors, Gaudí was very sick as a child with various ailments, including rheumatism, which could have contributed to his more reserved character. Gaudí's work was influenced by his passions in life: architecture, nature, and religion. And he considered every detail of his creations and integrated into his architecture such crafts as ceramics, stained glass, ironwork, carpentry, and we'll look at examples of all of those. And he also introduced new techniques in treatments of materials such as trencadis, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but trencadis was broken tile mosaics. So under the influence of neo-Gothic art, Gaudí became part of the Modernista movement, which was reaching its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And his work transcended mainstream modernism, kind of culminating in this very organic style inspired by natural forms. And Gaudí rarely drew detailed plans of his work, instead preferring to create them as these 3-dimensional scale models and kind of molding the details as he conceived them. So this is Gaudí's most famous work, La Sagrada Família church in Barcelona. And when finished, it will be the tallest, if not one of the largest churches in the world. And I speak in future tense because to this day, the church is still unfinished. The project was an immense undertaking to which Gaudí was appointed in 1883. And it occupied him continuously for the rest of his life. And when he died in 1926, the basilica was only about 20% complete. And it's representative of the architect's devout Catholic faith. Gaudí knew that he would not come close to live to see its completion, but it didn't deter him. Once, when questioned about its timeline, he replied, "My client is not in a hurry." This church is a pinnacle of Gaudí's work and style. He famously only used curved lines to represent the curved lines found in nature. And the church today is about 70% completed, and the last phase of construction is set to take place in 2026. And the roughly 25 million euro annual construction fee is said to be supplied by donors and entrance fees from the public. And even today, it's still one of the most recognizable symbols of Catalonia and Barcelona. So another of Gaudi's major projects, and among one of his most admired works, is the Casa Mila, or better known as La Pedrera, or the Quarry, was commissioned by Per Mila. And Gaudi designed the house around two large curved courtyards, as you could see in the floor plan at the top. And it's made of a structure of stone, brick, and cast iron columns. And the facade is actually built of limestone, apart from the top upper level, which is covered in white tiles, kind of evoking a snowy mountain. It has a total of 5 floors plus a loft, as well as the 2 large interior courtyards, one circular and one oval. And originally, Gaudi designed a religious statue of Our Lady of the Rosary to be placed on the roof, but anti-clerical riots in Barcelona in 1909, known as Bloody Week, made him forego this choice. So the impetus for Parc Güell was the Garden City movement in Great Britain at the turn of the century. So that was this kind of idea that people should have just as much living space as they do outdoor space in their neighborhoods. They should move out into the suburbs a little more, be at one with nature. So that was the impetus for this particular project. So Eusebi Güell bought a piece of rugged land in a hillside suburb of Barcelona and commissioned Gaudi to turn it into his namesake park. If you look at the bottom center picture, you can kind of see an overview of the park. And the design is thoroughly integrated into the terrain, with these columns seemingly excavated out of the hillsides and covered by vines. And its irregularities and slopes allowed Gaudi to experiment structurally with various ideas than more conventional sites like a flat city lot. The park is also an example of Catalan Art Nouveau, specifically with the broken tile mosaics that I mentioned before that are found throughout the park. The Casa Batlló is unusual among Gaudi's works in that it comprises a renovation of an existing structure, originally built in 1877. Josep Batlló, the house's owner since 1900, commissioned Gaudi, thinking that he would tear the building down and start new, but Gaudi convinced him to merely renovate it. And what's really fun about this structure, I mean, there's a lot of fun aspects to this, as you can see, but what's interesting is that the building sits adjacent to 2 other architectural masterpieces of the time. And so Gaudi knew he had to create a design that would hold its own near the other 2 and kind of compete for curb appeal. So this piece has been referred to as the House of Bones because of the bone-like framework over the windows. And if you look at the image on the left, you can see the facade surface is covered in intricate trencadis tiles mixed with glass, giving it this kind of shimmering effect, which appear like face masks used at Mardi Gras. And you can see it's a kind of similar color palette to Mardi Gras as well. This is Casa Vicens, opened to the public actually for the first time in 2017, so only very recently, and it's often considered Gaudi's first significant work. Conveniently for Gaudi, the project was a residence for the tile and brick manufacturer Manuel Vicens, who had just inherited the land. And Gaudi's design is considered neo-Moorish, which is a style that references the Islamic architecture of medieval Spain. The building is poised specifically to take advantage of these readily available construction materials. And as you can see, it features a kaleidoscope of tile work and color, features common to Muslim architecture. Again, we have Güell commissioning Gaudi for a building, and this is the Palau Güell, or Güell Palace. And this was the main residence of Eusebi Güell in the El Raval neighborhood in central Barcelona. And the house had a double arched entryway covered with these dramatic looped vine-like ironwork, which allows for the entrance of horse-drawn carriages through one archway and the exit through the other. So between the arches sits a massive piece of wrought iron. And at the center is a banner with the characteristic stripes of the Catalan flag. And this was kind of disclosing both Gaudi and Güell's staunch regionalism, excuse me. And the interior design of the Palau Güell is focused on a square central space that extends upwards 4 stories through the heart of the edifice and functions as a large reception hall for guests. And what's interesting, the reception hall is covered with this high domed ceiling that was painted dark blue to resemble the night sky. And Gaudí perforated it with small holes so that lanterns could be hung above, so that the glow kind of filtered into the space below, resembling twinkling stars. Here are some of the furniture pieces that Gaudí designed. Again, we can see his main design element of curvature to resemble the curving lines found in nature. The two-person bench in the top right corner is found in the Casa Batlló, and that was seen as very innovative. And Gaudí has been praised for the ergonomic qualities of his furniture, which is supposedly quite comfortable and intended to, accommodate the natural contours of the human frame. And what's interesting to me is that some of them still seem so modern, specifically the doorknob and the mirror. I feel like you could find similar designs in a modern interior design store. And finally, here are some of Gaudí's more famous quotes, most of them having to do with nature. There are no straight lines or sharp corners in nature. Therefore, buildings must have no straight lines or sharp corners. And the great book, always open and which we should make an effort to read, is that of nature. So Gaudí's fame grew internationally even during his lifetime, and it's clear that his legacy is permanent. 7 of his buildings are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There are numerous tributes to him within the Catholic Church, on film, and even an Iberia Airbus A340 jet was named after him. So that's an overview of Gaudí's work. And now I'm going to go pack my bags and plan a trip to Barcelona because it's definitely on my list of places to visit now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, just one more thing. You looked at Gaudí's techniques and had a chance to practice this over the holiday weekend with my grandkids. A lot, even if you look at the basilica that he presented, there was a lot of like dripping sand. I don't know if you can see that. But
oh yeah,
that's kind of what a lot of the architecture that he actually used this kind of technique to do some of the initial designs. It's interesting. So.
Very nice. Right. It's those natural forms. There's no straight lines in nature.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And actually, I noticed that Barry Dreskowitz put something in the chat about about Gaudí, the etymology of the word of Gaudí, which means extravagant, and that's kind of what he was, and that's where that word came from. So thank you for that, Barry.
Indeed. I wonder how many sandcastles he built when he was a kid.
Probably quite a few.
Yeah, and thanks for that explanation, Barry. Really love it. So thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jacques, for showing us the inner Gaudí of yourself there.